Good morning, Reds. It is Talking Reds. It is John Gibbons. We are here, courtesy of NordVPN, and we're here to talk about all the latest going on at Liverpool. Not much, if we're honest. It's a little bit quiet. I think the players have took a couple of days off. I'll be making the most of the fact that there's not a game until Monday, but there is a few things bubbling. Obviously, transfer stuff, ins and outs at this time of year. So myself, Josh Sexton and Mo Stewart are going to go through that with you guys as well. Do get your comments in if you are joining us live. Do join in. I hope Josh is here, partly, well, I mean, to bring us absolute wisdom bombs, but also to bring in your comments as well. So do let us know, because we're going to be talking about the forwards today. So a little bit about, well, maybe all five of them. Let's see sort of how far we could get. But we're talking about the future, what we think might happen, and any sort of rumoured ins and whether they were an addition or we think it is a replacement. But we start with Darwin Nunez, because whether he's on the pitch or off it, you can't keep your eyes off the man. He's been spotted in Barcelona, enjoying himself. People seeing him pictured with a Barcelona player and putting 2 and 2 together and getting 17. He just looks like he's gone to see his mate from Uruguay.
Yeah, I think so. I think he probably needs a little bit of a mental break from it all, which I also think is a little bit behind him deleting all the Liverpool pictures off. He just needs to kind of forget about all that for a while. And frankly, I think that's a really good idea. I think he needs to get out of his own head for a little bit. It's one of the things I always think about him, is that he's one of those people who's led by his emotions, led by impulse. And when it's good, it's great. And when it's bad, it's bad. And he's probably going to need to learn over the course of his life and career how to regulate that a bit more. But some time away is not going to do him any harm.
Yeah, dealing with the pressure of a big club, is something that all players sort of have to go through. And he's going through it a little bit at the moment. He's certainly had his ups and downs in his time at Liverpool. It's been very highs and lows, almost from the off. In terms of getting sent off with a headbutt in his first home game, I think it was. It's certainly very sort of early on, and winning goals, but tons of missed chances, and the scrutiny that are on players at a club like Liverpool, is just sort of bigger, and the Salah stuff was a reminder of that, just sort of last week, and everything becomes a big story, even deleting a few posts on Instagram.
Yeah, 100%. I was sort of trying to play that down at the weekend from the point of view of he was reportedly receiving death threats on social media and stuff, wasn't he? So I imagine that the easiest thing to do in that scenario is to take down the places where people are going to be going to send out those things, and I can't for the life of me comprehend why anybody would even do that in the first place. But he came on in the game and sort of missed his chance, and he definitely is a confidence player, isn't he? I think you heard Jurgen Klopp mention that at times last season. Obviously talked about how he was sort of not as great in the press and stuff, but then has talked about how much he's improved on that this year. So I think there's been a bit of a narrative that things haven't changed for Darwin at Liverpool, that he's not improved at Liverpool, but you've literally got the manager coming out and saying that he has, and for me, I think that progression can only sort of continue. It may help coming in under a new manager as well if he doesn't leave in the summer. So I still think there is a future for Darwin Nunez at Liverpool, and I didn't see him storm down the tunnel at the weekend. I sort of wasn't paying attention to any of that, but people seem to sort of get onto that. And I always think we read into those things more so from the point of view of he's disrespecting the supporters there, or he's doing this or he's doing that. He's probably just fuming with himself. Honestly, the amount of times when he used to see someone like Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's the most placid lad in the world, get subbed off and be fuming, and you're he's fuming, he's been subbed off. No, he's just fuming that he doesn't think he's played very well. So I imagine that's only the case for Darwin. He is a confidence player, and I imagine it will only take a couple of goals, and particularly some goals at Anfield, because we know how much he loves celebrating those ones in particular, to get some of that confidence back.
Yeah, this kind of obsession with what people do with the final whistles, it's taken on a new level. I mean, some of us are old enough to remember it only used to be Gerrard and Carragher who clap, and the rest of them would just sort of go. It only used to be them two, and lost me wedding there. But it's this thing about whatever. And listen, I loved seeing the Dortmund players as much as anyone. They're straight over to the fans, after the game and stuff. And that's a brilliant moment, but that's a brilliant celebration moment. But, when, the game sort of hasn't gone, is it as big as that, or the game hasn't gone for you well individually? But also as well, any player who's subbed on it late, is not going to do a big lap of honor. It looks stupid. Yeah. It sort of feels stupid. I don't think it's unusual for a player who's subbed on fairly late, has a bit of a frustrating time, to just sort of go down the tunnel, and that's normal. And it was similar for Mo. When I was talking about it, Mo, the last week, I was in the ground. I saw Mo clap the away fans. He just didn't sort of do a big thing. So he walked off, give a bit of a clap to the away fans. I saw it with my own eyes at West Ham, and then sort of walked off. But I think when you've been sort of subbed on, that's sort of normal, really. If you'd have spoke to the player, you'd be like, well, I didn't really do anything.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, for Nunez, the things that he did do was the point where he thought he was going to get an assist, and then he was offside by literally a ponytail hair's breadth. And then there's the chance that he had that he didn't go in his way, which, by the way, was 15 seconds before full time.
Was it that close?
Literally 15 seconds before full time. So
it's not unreasonable to say that was in his head.
Yeah, exactly. So he was probably just like, oh, fuck this, not another one, I'm out of here. And didn't give another thought to what everyone normally does. And again, I think that sometimes we have to remember the fact that the emotions that we feel on the outside are just as strong as the emotions the players feel on the inside, but they're feeling them in different ways. They're feeling them about their individual performance and stuff like that. Talk about the old days of Gerrard and Carragher. I remember Sturridge. Sturridge was one who was always pissed off at himself if he done something wrong. And people would always take that the wrong way and be like, oh, he's just surly, he's moody, he's this,
the body language experts had a field day with
exactly.
Daniel.
and now we get to see him all the time. Everyone knows exactly what kind of a man he is. So I think we, particularly when things aren't going well, we do obsess so much about tiny little things that really don't matter.
The thing with me with Darwin, Josh, you just said that you expect him to stay. I could go either way on it, to be honest with you. I just don't know, because there are so many unknowns at the moment with a new manager coming in, with the new structure and what everyone involved in this process thinks of Darwin Nunez. I've got no clue, to be honest with you. But what I feel like I can be confident and what I feel like I do know is that they won't do anything without a plan. And this idea that, 1st of June, we're just going to ship Darwin Nunez out and then we're going to go, right, who are we buying now? Do you know what I mean? Like, just goes against everything that we know from Michael Edwards and that we know from FSG and we know from the structure. It's very meticulous. Sometimes you could argue, it's all sort of, too not too well thought out. I don't think that's a thing, but you know what I mean? Like, they can be like, you'd like them to be...
Spontaneity's nice.
Yes, exactly. Just go for something every now and again. YOLO. John Hemi could be a bit more YOLO. I would say, but generally speaking, the reason I'm quite relaxed about what happens with Darwin is that I just know that they won't sell him unless they think they can get someone better in, and in that case, we're all up to heads.
And unless they think they can get the right price for him, by the way, like there's all this sort of chat at the moment of how people would take any fee for him, and people would be driving him there. Michael Edwards is not going to drive him anywhere, and also Michael Edwards is only going to want something close to what they paid for him, because that's the way Liverpool sort of look to balance the books and look to break it even, and for the most part they usually do. There's been a couple of buys in Jurgen Klopp's time who they've not got the money back on. They're usually the ones who's the back end of their career, whether their sort of contract runs out or whatever, or it's running down, or they've had a really disappointing back end to the Liverpool career. And I don't think you could still say that for Darwin. Like, his numbers this season, someone's put in the chat there that he's got the worst conversion rate of big chances in Europe, but there's still the numbers are still there to back it up. And the same person said get Ishak. He scored more goals than Ishak this season, and Ishak's obviously had his injury issues and things like that. He's been in and out of the team. I'm not sort of making this a comparison between the two players necessarily, but the numbers for Darwin are there. Like, the numbers sort of back up in terms of the goals he scored and the assists he's got. And we were talking about a player who back in January was involved in about already sort of 20-25 goals, and when we were looking to sort of kick on with him from there. So yes, I'm not going to sit here and say that there's been disappointing times with Darwin. That they always are, and I remember when he first came in and sort of because there was a comparison in the narrative at the time about him and Haaland. I was like, I think Haaland's going to be a more sort of consistent level of goal scoring, and I think Darwin's going to be shit or champagne, basically. And we're very much seeing that at the moment. But I still think there's a real player in there, and I don't think the club are going to look at him and be like, no, we think he's shit. 5 million will do it. Like they're going to want some serious dough for him. So I wouldn't be expecting anybody to be driving him anywhere in the summer. If he leaves, he's going to be doing it probably on a private jet. And probably for upwards of 50 million.
I was going to say, and that would probably be the case. There would probably be plenty of teams who would be willing to pay that much for him, which kind of tells you that outside of our own navel gazing, there's certain people who probably do value him higher than a lot of our fan base does. I think his biggest problem is that his worst period of form in the season came at the worst possible time, when every single game matters more than it ever had ended up to that point,
and when the other forwards aren't scoring either. because because you can have a bad month if Mo Salah's flying, you know what I mean, and then it's best if you take it in turns, basically.
Exactly, and that was what was great about the Salah Mane Firmino thing, because they were a tag team in a really, really keen way, and when even some of them weren't doing it, you had Divock that would come up once every blue moon. But like, if you're talking about consistency of scoring, I think Nunez is on a par with all of those. Like Josh mentions his goal record, the goals and assists, goal contributions as they call it now. I was having a bit of a dig around in some of the stats. Like, he's at 31 this season. Mane's best season for Liverpool, 18-19, was 32. Firmino got, I think, 44 in 17-18 when he was absolutely on one, but he didn't get more than 24 in any other of his seasons. So when you compare him to those guys who everyone remembers as being a lot more consistent, he probably isn't. But one thing I would say, though, there are things about him where you look and you wonder how much development is happening. Like, there are lots of parts of his game that have definitely improved, but when he has a bad game, it feels like he's gone back to zero.
He forgets all his learning.
And again, I was saying on the gutter yesterday, I think we need to find the Uruguayan Steve Peters, or maybe even the Paul McKenna for all your kids out there. I just
the teenagers.
I just find a way to just channel, so he's calmer, and so he can kind of relax and rely on his process a little bit more when it comes to those stress and pressure moments, because everybody's going to have stress and pressure moments when you're playing for Liverpool, because Liverpool are always going to be going for the big things. And the idea that we would kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater by selling him now, and then you see him go somewhere else and flourish, it just feels like that would be a massive mistake to me. So I'm not saying that the patience for him is indefinite. I do think that there's going to come a point, maybe in 12 months' time, if we're having the same conversation, where it does flip the other way. But for now, I just think that we've got so much potential in there still available to be unlocked. And we shouldn't forget, this new manager coming in, when he is officially ratified coming in, one of his big things is about developing players and getting them to be higher and better than they had been before. Feels like this is a perfect project. Feels like almost they got him in for Darwin.
Yeah, no, I agree with sort of all that. I love the Paul McKenna shout as well. My favourite Paul McKenna thing from before your time was that Steve Collins blagged that before the big fight with Eubank. You'll know this. It was brilliant. It was back when boxing was on ITV. It was like 15 million people would watch on a Saturday night, and it was Eubank with Steve Collins, massive fight. And Steve Collins said that Paul McKenna would hypnotise him so he couldn't feel pain, and everyone fell for it, which is insane, because like that's a really unsafe thing to do. I don't think Paul McKenna, but obviously he didn't agree to do it, but he agreed for Steve Collins to tell everyone he'd done it. And but I think it got in Eubank's head, because there was a moment in, I think, round 11 where he hurts him and Collins wobbles, and then Eubank's like, oh fucking hell, and then afterwards the guy asked him about it. This is a real segue, but I loved it. In the round he was like, oh yeah, and that way with Paul McKenna really helped, and Steve Collins just laughed his head off. That was it, we fooled the world. Absolutely brilliant. But then yeah, of course you can't hypnotise someone. Getting punched in the face hurts. But anyway, I think in terms of Mo's non-Paul McKenna points there, in terms of, it is, you're looking at him and it's his age, isn't it? It's 24, and so the reason I can go either way with Darwin, and like I say, I won't be too disappointed if he moves on, because I'd back them to have a plan to get better, but I won't be too disappointed if he stays either, because for me it's all about what happens next in him. And he's 24, it is still young. 24 is when we used to buy players, wasn't it? We got him a little bit young in terms of, for Liverpool. Liverpool don't tend to obviously, spend too much money on the 28, 29-year-olds, but we get players when they're just about to sort of go into their peak, and that's what we did with Mane, with Salah, and for me, it's can he take that next step on? We know what talent he's got, we know the skills he's got, we know a lot of it is a mindset thing, like Mo was talking about, and also, forgetting in these moments, what he's learned and sort of what he's developed. But for me, it is just a case of, well, can he sort of kick on? Because you look at someone like Ollie Watkins, for example, who a lot of Liverpool fans are keen on. He's 28. When he was 24, he was playing in the Championship. And so, but people were talking about him. Don't get me wrong, he'd scored loads of goals for Brentford, wasn't it? And stuff like that. So people were saying, he's a talented player. But they weren't necessarily saying at that point, Liverpool should be spending £70 million on him. So it'd be very unlike Liverpool, I think, it's certainly under this ownership model to get rid of Darwin Nunez and buy Ollie Watkins. I think the hope is that, you know, who is what can Darwin Nunez, what is his ceiling, where can we sort of take him to, or if not, who's the other guy who's around the similar age who can progress? And that's the big question for me, Josh.
Yeah, definitely, and that's, you know, the club will know that as well. And listen, like, you know, there's obviously been the reports recently of a few sort of patch journalists coming out and talking about, you know, Darwin being a Klopp signing, not a very data driven sign and stuff. That one that's sort of done more on the eye test. But, you know, Michael Edwards will come in now and he'll sit down and he'll be level headed about the whole thing. There's a lot of criticism for Darwin in the comments here, and people sort of saying, oh, how can you back him up and stuff like that. It's not just blind faith that we have in Darwin Nunez here. There's genuine numbers to back it up. We've seen performances to back it up and stuff, and we're not just blindly defending him either. Like we've criticised when there's been bad performance, we've acknowledged that there's been bad displays. It's just sort of that level-headedness that the club will look to approach it with. Like no one in any sort of boardroom around Liverpool is going to be going, yeah, but he's shite and Ishak's better and stuff like that. Like they're not going to approach it in that sort of emotional way. So I'm expecting some big decisions to come in the summer. And listen, if Darwin turns around to Michael Edwards or whoever and says, actually, you know, I feel like I've given this a go over 2 years. I don't particularly fancy myself for it. If you can look for another club for me, that would be brilliant. I'm sure they would welcome that as long as the right fee comes along. They're not just going to ship him out against what sort of works for them. So I expect that the club will look at it in the summer. I believe he will probably stay, because I don't think anyone is going to pay upwards of 50 million for Darwin Nunez this summer, given what we've seen from him this season. But I still think there is room there to develop. I remember having, you know, so many arguments with you know, big England fans around. I think it was probably one of the World Cups maybe in 2018. That's right, isn't it, for World Cup years? And around that time, Sterling was missing loads and loads of big chances for England, and they're all going, oh, Sterling's crap, Sterling's this, Sterling's that. And I was like, well, there's literally no one else in the team who gets into those positions. Yeah. So at some point you have to value the fact that there is someone who gets into those positions. And, you know, Liverpool's forward line has chopped and changed so much down the years, like it feels unfair. And someone was pointing out before to compare Firmino's numbers, for example, to Darwin's numbers, because they're two totally different players. But then, you know, you look at a Sadio Mane and a Luis Diaz, there's all sorts of different dynamics to Liverpool's forward line now, and it's up to Liverpool and you know, who we expect it to be Arne Slot, the new manager who comes in, to sort of work that out. It's up to Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes and all the sort of data fellas to sit down and look at it and be like, well, who is the forward that works best? Who's the forward who stays fit the most as well? Because by the way, I'd love it to be Diogo Jota starting week in week out. I'd love it if you know, if Ishak was fit week in week out and a bank loads in and we go and sign him in the summer, but he's not been fit week in week out. I don't want to sign another injury prone striker when we've already got one of them who's great.
Well, another
anyway.
Forward, you know, people are talking about a lot is Elise. He's not a centre forward, but he's a wide forward. But he's played 17 league games this season, and that's going to be a factor.
He's had 2 seasons where he's been really hampered, and it's hamstring injuries as well. So when you're fast and you're young, and your body's developing, those things can happen. So there is a world that says a decent strength and conditioning program can kind of get those things away, and so he can be a performer. He's someone I would definitely keep an eye on, although it does appear that he might be a Man United fan, which is a bit weird.
It is a bit weird. What's happened? What's happened there? Listen, there's loads more of this and more on the Gutter Show, which is available for Anfield Wrap subscribers now. So if you download the app, get stuck in to that. Rob Gutman will be deep and dark inside the gutter. Awesome. Have you did that show? Did you yesterday? Was it a belter? Lots more of this.
Oh yeah. We did a lot. I mean, the entire show was on Darwin and on forwards and on if we do replace him, who comes in, etc., etc. So I'm trying not to repeat myself, but there's been a few kind of little leaders into what we say in there, so it's definitely worth everyone watching. Yeah, absolutely. Rob will know all the options. Do not worry about that. Exactly how many goals they've all scored and who is available. So download the Anfield Wrap, get stuck across that, and that will be obviously carrying on throughout the summer. Just before we have a little break, one man who will be quietly quite happy about all the Darwin Nunez storm is Mo Salah, because last year it was all him, and then, I mean, what a Sunday he had. He scores a goal, all the Darwin Nunez stuff happens, he's sat there going, brilliant. Yeah, exactly. No heat on me. No, and it's funny as well, because it was almost a perfect game in so many ways. We started well, he gets the first goal, and he's basically given a present by Spurs, which is they've put a left back. They've got a right-footed fellow over on left back to face up against him, and they've got a left winger who has no business or interest in doubling up and helping him out. So he's just out there on an island, and Mo's like, okay, sound, a little buffet for me, and he absolutely ate him up. So what more could he possibly want to put all of the other stuff to bed? And he is one of those guys for whom sometimes a little bit of criticism works in his favour. He's not...
Lights a little fire.
Yeah. And again, this is something that maybe he can put his arm around Darwin and kind of teach him and say, look, the best way, don't let them get to you. Just prove them wrong. I mean, that's something we saw some of the fellas who left last summer, like your Milners and your Hensons. They were always really good at that. They would always talk about how they would use that criticism for fuel. And there is a way of doing that. There is a way of kind of channeling that in the right way. But yeah, if anyone thought that Salah was over, they were highly mistaken.
Yeah, well, it's a positive for me in terms of his future, Josh, because I feel like, you know, you wouldn't want to have gone into the summer with a little bit of a cloud or too much of a cloud anyway, because, listen, Mo seems like a rational guy, and obviously he's got people around him who he really trusts and stuff like that. But when they're making the next decision on what is forward, you want everyone doing it with a clear head and with, you know, not sort of, you know, as I said before, sort of too much of a cloud, really. I think him finishing the season strongly sort of feels like it means he's more likely to sort of stay for me, really. I don't think that it's any surprise that that some of the Saudi stuff got ramped up last summer around the time that he was thought to be a little bit unhappy. There was a time when he was hooked at Chelsea, and he had a bit of a sort of a shop around that. You know, there was a few other things sort of going on, you know what I mean, at the time, and I don't think all that helped, really. So I think Mo, for those of us who want Mo to sign a new contract and stay sort of beyond the summer, I think him scoring goals and looking happy again can only really help towards that.
Yeah, definitely. And listen, you know, we've been talking about the different dynamics of the forward line. Ultimately, the way I see it, for as long as Mo Salah is going to be at the club, he's probably going to be one of the top goal scorers there, unless you go and sign somebody who, you know, can put up some serious numbers. Because the one thing that Mo Salah can guarantee you is you know a 20 plus goals a season effectively in the league, and even more than that across all competitions. So yeah, I'm fully sort of on board with the idea of Mo Salah staying. I was pleased that it came out so quickly after the whole incident with Klopp, because obviously that was the time when people were sort of questioning his future. And listen, I also did it in the heat of the moment. I was definitely in group chats being like, listen, if he doesn't want to respect the manager, doesn't want to be a Liverpool Football Club, then he can move on. But the more you sort of see things, the more you get context, the more you sort of get a level-headed approach to it and calm down a bit. And I do see Mo Salah's, you know, future being at Liverpool. I never thought that the Saudi stuff was as cut and dry as sort of people were making out. I think there's obviously the Arabic connection there, and people were jumping towards that. But you even see from Ornstein's thing, there seems to be a bit of acknowledgement from Saudi that, you know, it's not going to be just a case of Mo Salah is walking there or anyone's driving him there. I really hate that phrase, by the way, as you can probably tell.
It's just poor negotiations. You're all about value, aren't you, lad?
Whacking the family on and we'll drive him to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, so I am, you know, completely fully on board with Salah staying.
Yeah, okay. We'll do a little bit more in a second on the forward options. We're going to talk about Cody Gakpo a little bit, and maybe a few others as well. But I do want to give a big shout out in the meantime to NordVPN, who've been partnering with us on these Talking Reds episodes, as well as supporting us on the podcasts as well. And yeah, they are partnering with us for Talking Reds for the rest of the season. And it is a fantastic service. I use it for a variety of different reasons. It's the internet security, it's the peace of mind, it's logging in on public Wi-Fi's and having that little bit extra reassurance that nothing sort of too dodgy is going to happen there, especially when sort of travelling around and travelling abroad. But the main reason I use it, and I know a lot of the people who are listening who've downloaded it do use it as well, as this ability to change your virtual location and enjoy things like TV shows, films that aren't available in your country but are available in others. So that might be when you're going away, maybe you're going on holiday this summer, but you can't miss your favourite TV show that allow you to do that. And also things like sporting events that are taking place in different places, maybe even this country, who knows, that you can't watch in the country you're in, but you can watch it abroad. It'll allow you to change your virtual location and maybe download a package there and enjoy something that's not on telly in your country that isn't on telly somewhere else. And speaking of which, RIP the Clippers for the season. Josh, you've written some stern words about the current crop. Is it time to say goodbye to a couple? It's all there. online on the internet.
It is on my Substack for anyone who is interested in basketball. I won't sort of get too heavy into the details of it, but me and Mo generally make a fool of ourselves every year by recording a show for the Anfield Wrap where we do NBA playoffs predictions and things like that. And I predicted the Clippers to go pretty far, because basically my cycle with the Clippers is I go into the season completely hopeless. Halfway through the season they'll do something really good, and that's when I'll start drinking the Kool-Aid and fall completely for the Clippers trap, which is to get you to believe that they can go on and win a championship, and then at some point they end up spectacularly letting you down. And I would say this year was maybe the most spectacular act of that they've done so far. So
fair play to them in a way.
Consistency.
The thing I liked about it is this year it wasn't just Clippers fans who were high on them. It was lots of people saying, "Oh, you never know, you got to
how about them Clippers?
You got to watch out for them." And it's like, yeah, you got to watch them, all right.
Watch them make a fool of you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really talk because the Sixers are just equally as bad, if not worse, in lots and lots of ways.
Well, as a glutton for punishment, you're now getting into baseball.
Yeah,
which is another thing.
And another Philadelphia team.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I've been a bit of a baseball curio for a while, but without picking a team. Like I went to see the Cubs last summer, and that was really good. But with my kind of connection to Philadelphia, I feel like I need to strengthen it. So I have gone with the Phillies at a point when the Phillies are playing really well, but also at a point when the Phillies are coming to London next month.
Okay.
So I'm going to be down in London for those two games. There's like a Philly sports bar. They're going to do like a full tailgate show party type thing. I'm going to be getting involved with that. So anyone who is planning to go to see the Phillies in London, or is going to be in and around London around that time, come down there, come check me out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
See, I can get on board with that. The devastating disappointment bit wasn't massively for me, but the drinking in public count me in. So I mean, obviously baseball's not really on telly over here because they play 100 games a season, but something like a NordVPN service can help you sort of do that. So if you are interested, and they do also give a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, so you can give it a go. They're that confident that you'll enjoy it. You'll stick with them. They've offered that 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's nordvpn.com/TAW, nordvpn.com/TAW, and you'll be supporting us as well, and we'd appreciate it. But as promised, Josh, Cody Gakpo, there's an interesting article in the Echo today looking at his time in Holland up against who we think is going to be the new manager, which is Arne Slot, and it is a bit of an opportunity for him. Cody, I was going to say to have a sort of, a fresh start, but that's maybe, damning him a little bit. He's had plenty of good times at Liverpool so far, but his Liverpool career hasn't, fully ignited yet. But a Dutch manager coming in who knows him well, hasn't worked with him, but has managed it up against him and will know his style. Might be able to help him, and as this article points out, he's actually done very well against Arne Slot in terms of goals. So it's 4 times they've come up against each other with different clubs. So obviously Slot was at AZ and then moved to Feyenoord. So in 4 games, Gakpo has got 3 goals and 3 assists. So Slot knows how dangerous he can be because he's hurt him.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see whether there is a sort of change of roles, really, because that's been one of the things that's probably frustrated me the most with Gakpo this season, or for Gakpo this season, I should say, because I've not necessarily been frustrated with him in such a direct sense, in that I think there was a lack of understanding around his role, probably from him personally, but that was because it was changing so much, and I was pleased to hear the manager at one point come out and sort of acknowledge that he'd played him in midfield a bit too much, and that sort of confused Gakpo in terms of where his role was meant to be in the team, and found him maybe dropping a bit too deep at times when he was playing other roles to try and get on the ball and to try and support the team in that way. And that's one of the things that's always been clear to me about Gakpo, is that he is such a strong team player, and I think you see it again at the weekend. Like, his all-round game is so complete. Basically, it's just that goal scoring which you wonder if that's gonna be able to kick on. So I'd be interested to see with the new gaffer whether he comes in and can sort of encourage more goals out of Gakpo, or whether that's just going to be not a part of his game in the way that, I think there's probably a bit of revisionism around Roberto Firmino's time at Liverpool, and he's going to be the obvious comparison that people go back to. Firmino scored a lot of goals for Liverpool, really, and more goals than you're sort of seeing Gakpo putting up in terms of numbers so far. But there's so much time for Gakpo to develop into that sort of player, if that's what it's going to be like. But then I think the dynamic of the front three, again, I'll sort of come back to that idea of who's playing what role. Firmino was ultimately behind two forwards who who, you know, we're running in behind, we're getting all the goals. If Gakpo is not going to be a goal scoring forward, then Liverpool need to go and find someone off the left hand side who is, because I'm not sure that Luis Diaz is that. I think they're probably quite similar players in terms of, you know, areas of the pitch they want to play in and stuff. So I'll be really interested to see what the new manager does with players like Gakpo, with Nunez, as we mentioned, and then Diaz as well, because I think there's some dead interesting questions coming up there.
No, absolutely. And listen, it's a bit basic, isn't it, to say, oh, they're Dutch, they'll get on. Because first of all, have you met the Dutch? But secondly, that we've all had that happen to us, haven't we, when you go to university or whatever. It's like, oh, you two are Scousers, you know what I mean? And you're like, well, I might like him, I might not, type thing, you know what I mean? And so, but you do feel like it maybe gives him a little bit of a head start in terms of some of the others, because he'll certainly know him better than the other players.
I think so, and he'll know his qualities, and like I say, he's not only from playing against him, but from having to try and game plan against him, and that might well help him. I think the best way it can help him is, like what Josh alluded to, is to kind of simplify his role. Like, I understand the reasoning behind him playing in midfield, but I don't want to see it anymore. Yeah. I want him to either be a centre forward or off the left. One of the things I've been most encouraged about over the last 2 games in particular is that when he has been in the centre forward position, you're seeing him more driving into the 6-yard box when the ball's out wide. That was the biggest criticism, one of the biggest criticisms against him. He wasn't getting into the goal scoring positions a lot, and maybe if he starts doing that more, he's going to get more chances, he's going to get more shots, and he's going to get more goals. But the kind of counter argument to the he doesn't score enough goals thing is that if we've all been saying most of this season that he's the 5th choice forward, like 15 goals, it all comes from the 5th choice forward.
Yeah,
it's better than we've ever had.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And obviously back in the day when it was Divock and Minamino and even Ryan Brewster kind of knocking around as the supposed 5th forward, it didn't matter so much because 1, 2 and 3 were all up here.
Yeah.
Whereas now you need your 5th guy more. Your 5th guy is playing nearly every game because we've got 5 subs. So it's a little bit different, but I still think if he's 5th in the food chain and he's getting 15, then I think that's pretty good. I think that's definitely something to work with, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him become more prominent next season.
Yeah, no, I think it is going to be an interesting one to watch, and what I've liked from him, you know, in recent games, Josh, as well, I just feel like there's a bit more of a determination from him to make an impact in games, and he has got a laid-back style, and you know, we shouldn't sort of criticise styles too much because, you know, it's whatever sort of suits the player, but I'm sometimes not quite sure it suits him. It reminds me a little bit of, you know, we spent yesterday reliving the Barcelona stuff and the Anfield Wrap social yesterday. If you haven't checked it out, it was fantastic, so fair play to Liam and that upstairs, because it was absolutely brilliant. But you know, Genie doesn't start that game, and there's a few jokes about angry Genie. You know, Jurgen Klopp says, "Oh, you're an angry Genie," so how he comes on and goes, "Right, I'm going to show you." And I think a little bit of that from Gakpo won't go amiss, and someone like, you know, Arnie Slot, who does know him, who's able to speak to him in his own language if need be, or that obviously Gakpo's English is brilliant, both of theirs is, but I feel like, you know, someone who might be able to work with him a little bit more one-on-one.
When he talks about the stuff that he doesn't want everyone else to understand. It's like, you're much better than these dickheads.
I do feel like, although, like, it reminds me a little bit of Wijnaldum in that sort of sense, really, in that, you know, it's fair enough having this, you know, being this sort of laid-back guy, but a little bit of fire can sometimes get a bit more from you, and that's what I feel like I've seen from him. Like when he came off the bench against Sheffield United, it was like, right, you want me in the box? Here we go, boom.
And I think that's the most important thing when you are in front of goal. Like it's one of the things that, you know, listen, people can talk about the big chances Haaland misses and stuff like that, but Haaland really does have that fire in front of goal. Like he's an arrogant prick basically, but that's why he gets the goal returns that he does, because when he's in front of goal, he's like, I'm going to score here. This goalkeeper's got no chance. I'm well better than everybody in the world basically, and that's like the most important thing in a forward. I think it's probably the thing that's maybe tailed off for Mo Salah a little bit over time, is that whenever he sort of cuts inside and takes those chances, it almost doesn't look like he believes it's going to go in, and like you say, Gakpo needs more of that, and I don't think this is the first time this season that he's really sort of kicked on and made himself more of a team player, because I think back to like the League Cup final, which I think was, you know, such an underrated performance from from Cody Gakpo, to be honest. Like, he doesn't come up with goals in that game or anything, but the all-round game, the bringing other players into play, the, you know, making Liverpool just an effective pressing unit for one, but an effective attacking unit too, is just been, you know, brilliant to watch at times. And I think there's so much to work with in terms of Cody. I just think that the biggest question for the next manager will be, is he going to be a goal scorer, or is he going to be, you know, someone who just contributes more to the team? Because then, you know, Mo's saying he doesn't want to see him in midfield. To be honest, if Slot's playing more of a 4-2-3-1 and we're deciding that Gakpo's not going to score goals, I'd probably rather see him in a sort of 10 position or off the left. I'd rather him not be the focal point of a one striker system. But, you know, that's up to the new manager who comes in ultimately, and what sort of forwards he likes to work with, because you've got, you know, one forward there who is really divided opinion in the comments today. Nunez, probably more than I expected, in terms of, you know, the more criticism of him than any praise at the moment. But maybe that's just reactionary to sort of what goes on at the weekend.
Fresh in the mind, exactly. As well, isn't it, with any footballer?
But Nunez is ultimately a footballer who, you know, causes problems for defenders. We've seen defenders struggle with Nunez all season. He pushes defences back. We don't have another option like that. Mo Salah, I would like to see him play more through the middle. I don't believe he's that option. Gakpo definitely isn't that option. Jota's not that option. Diaz isn't that option. So I'll be really interested to see whether there is sort of incomings in that regard in the summer, but also, you know, the development of players like Gakpo, because I think there's so much to work with there. I'll just be interested to see, you know, which direction it goes now.
Just like take 3 to 4 weeks maybe. Take Cody and Darwin, put them on a desert island. So it's just the two of them out there. So Cody can be a little bit more Darwin, and Darwin can be a little
Cody,
bit
by
more,
the way.
A little bit more
Absolute
Cody.
head kettle in those.
I mean, yes.
The thing is, though, Darwin Nunez can fish. We know that.
It's true. He's not going to go hungry.
Yeah.
But I think that if you can find a way to get a middle ground between the two of them in terms of what they bring and how their attitude to the game, I think we'd all be better off. So if there is a way that they can just kind of feed a little bit off of each other in that way, then maybe that's the perfect way.
And say what you want, it's content for the summer. George, send you out on the desert island with your camera, see what you come back with, like fucking Blair Witch. Find it in a month's time.
He's got this massive face tattoo. He's like, where did that come from? I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, not very. Too soon. Listen, loads more of this. I mean, not that, but the sort of the transfer stuff. Well, yeah, quite possibly. As I say, on the Anfield Wrap app throughout the summer, so there's going to be loads of interesting shows going on, obviously on transfers, looking at ins and outs. We didn't even get on to the ins, but they certainly will have done on the gutter. Gutman's got replacements for everyone, all the pricks. Don't worry about it. Also, Neil and Josh Williams did some really interesting shows for video subscribers, looking at the new manager and how he might be looking to use different players and different systems, and how it might benefit who we've got, and any little gaps that they feel that there are in the squad that Liverpool needs to go and recruit for. So that will be available, I think, on the app now as well. And we'll be doing some squad shows in the summer as well, so they're all booked in for a couple of weeks' time, when me and Neil sit down and look at the squad, defence, midfield and forwards, look at it in a little bit more detail, as say, assess who we think is likely to stay, who we think is an asset going forward, and where we feel like there might be gaps that Liverpool will look to fill in the summer. So it is a big summer. We haven't even talked about the main man leaving today, but loads on that, of course, on the app as well. So great time to subscribe, download the Anfield Wrap app. If you haven't yet, you do get some free tokens where you can enjoy a few shows that give you a little bit of a taste as well. But yeah, in the meantime, I do want to thank Josh, I do want to thank Mo and you guys, and of course NordVPN for partnering with us for Talking Reds. Up the Reds, have a lovely day in the sunshine. It's beautiful.
A VPN, short for Virtual Private Network, is a cybersecurity tool for privacy and security. When you connect to it, a VPN creates a secure tunnel and secures data traveling between you and the VPN server. Encryption scrambles data, so to anyone outside the encrypted tunnel, the information looks like gibberish, meaning no snoops can sneak a peek at your online activity. NordVPN ensures that you can browse safely and privately in just a few clicks.